Welcome to the Every Mom is an Athlete podcast, where we believe that motherhood is inherently athletic. I see you lifting car seats, chasing toddlers, and carrying groceries one-handed while holding a baby and a coffee. Your daily life is a workout. I'm Dr. Carly, pregnancy and postpartum expert, sports chiropractor, strength coach, entrepreneur, and mom of three. Here you'll find solo episodes and real conversations with other moms and leading experts, so you can live your strongest, healthiest, most aligned life in motherhood. No matter how long it's been since you've had your baby, whether you're reconnecting with your body, rebuilding your strength, or just figuring out what feels good again, you're in the right place. Hello, and welcome back, strong moms, to Every Mom is an Athlete. Today, I feel like this might be a little controversial topic, so I would love to hear your take on this after. But hear me out. Let me explain myself before you go a little crazy, okay? So today we're talking about why lifting heavy is the secret for a better postpartum recovery. And I'm not saying jump right back in early postpartum and start lifting heavy weights right away. That's not what I'm saying at all. If you know me, then, or if you've heard me talk ever, you know that that's not what I would tell you to do. But I do want to encourage you to work towards lifting heavier weights. And I'm going to explain why. So here we go. In my practice, I obviously, all I see really are postpartum and pregnant women, right? And I love just like the desire of my heart is to help women during pregnancy and then especially in early postpartum figure out what they can get back to doing and how they can improve their strength. And we do that, as you know, we start with breathing and bracing and rehab exercises. But what I see really often is then women progress into using light weights and they never progress forward from those light weights. And I get it. And I know that some women, that's like what they want to do, and that's fine. But I think for a lot of women, they're afraid, they're nervous. They've been told like, don't overdo it. And there's like all this fear mongering, right? And so they're just like, maybe they want to get back to lifting heavier weights, or they want to see the change in muscle definition that so many of us desire, which I'm sorry to tell you, it really doesn't happen with lifting just super light weights. You have to start progressively overloading your muscles. You don't have to do that fast like in CrossFit, but you do have to start lifting heavier to see a difference. And side note, when you put on more lean muscle mass, your metabolism goes up. And so it really just like sort of feeds this healthy cycle of getting you back to being your very fittest self. The other thing I really encourage women to think about is, let's say you get through kind of the rehab phase, you're doing your light weights, but then what I would see a lot of women doing is light weights, really high reps. And I just like to encourage you to think about like, that is a lot of reps on your body, right? If you're trying to build true strength, we do that with a low rep count and a higher weight. And so if you're going to do, 3 sets of 15, 20 reps, it's just a lot of reps on your body. It's a lot of wear and tear on your joints. And I would very often rather see you do like 3 to 5 sets of 4 to 6 reps if we're trying to build true strength. When we don't progressively overload with weight, which means you start lifting, let's say you start at 5 pounds, lifting 5 pounds, and you're slowly building up to where you need more and more weight to make changes in your muscle. So you want it to feel like it's getting harder. It's like it's never getting easy, basically, with weightlifting, right? But without having that, without progressive overload, there is a bigger chance of having hip and back pain, again, because we're just having reps and reps and reps on those joints of lifting those weights. It actually doesn't increase our bone density as much as lifting a heavier weight does, which we all know as women, especially with prolonged breastfeeding, that is a concern, right? So we want to make sure that we are getting all that we can out of our weightlifting to help with our bones as well as our muscles. And actually, there are some studies that show that moderate to heavy weight training does not worsen pelvic floor outcomes when it's properly progressed. So obviously, again, we're not like jumping right back in, but we are slowly working back up to heavier weights. I would suggest that would be the best way to go. Also, I was looking up some research as I prepared for this episode, but there are studies that show that women lose up to 10% of their lean body mass by the 3rd trimester and in early postpartum. So it's for a lot of reasons, right? Like most of us are not lifting as heavy through our pregnancies. We're not working out as hard. Our whole body composition is changing, right? As we're growing a baby, we're putting on more fat, we're breastfeeding. There's like all these changes that are happening. And so whatever we can do to help improve that, I am all for. And I am also for helping my patients and all of you that listen, I'm all for helping you with that too. So let's talk about what heavy means. Okay. So when I say we should be lifting heavy weights, I'm not saying you need to be max lifting. In fact, it is rare that I think you should be doing a very max lift for the general population, right? It means that you're progressively getting heavier and heavier to where you fatigue by like 6 to 10 reps, okay, at the very most. The other thing that's happening here is this is going to help us remodel our collagen, which is going to help build the tissues back stronger, right? When we lift a weight, we're basically breaking down the muscle and then it recovers, right? And it recovers stronger. And that's how we build more muscle. There also, we have hormonal benefits to lifting heavier, growth hormone, our testosterone, all that stuff for tissue repair. That happens when we lift heavier weights. And finally, I want to talk about improved energy. As our muscles get stronger and as we're able to support our body more, many people will find that they have less daily fatigue. Okay. So all of these reasons are reasons that point to lifting heavier weights as opposed to just super light weights. Now, of course, we do want to make sure that our joints are all stable and ready to go before we get back into that, right? So we want to make sure that you have coordinated your breathing, your bracing, your pelvic floor, and all of that so that you're feeling like you are sturdy and stable in your core before we start lifting weights. So there are some things in my office that I like to have women do before we start increasing the load as they're getting back into the gym. So first thing would be glute bridges. I want you to be able to hold it for 30 seconds to a minute and then be able to do 15 controlled reps. Now, remember, everything has to be nice and slow and controlled. When we rush through things, we can really just hide the imperfections, right? So I want you to do everything slow and controlled. That will really highlight the areas where you have a problem or where you might need to stabilize a little better. I love for my patients to be able to walk for 30 minutes without any symptoms, pelvic floor issues, like feeling like something's falling out, leaking, pain, anything like that. Doing a farmer's carry, I think, is really important. So being able to do 30 seconds and holding 2 fairly heavy weights in your hands, what this is going to do, it's going to help make sure that your core is nice and stable. It's also, by the way, farmer's carries are one of my favorite exercises postpartum to help with posture because we're all just so rounded forward and crunched forward from breastfeeding and carrying a baby and holding and all this stuff. So side note, I love those. Please start doing those. And actually everyone, I have older people who come into my practice occasionally want to work on posture, as they're getting older. And that's one of the ones that I often give them because it just is so simple and just so effective. Back to what we need to do as far as kind of benchmarks to be able to increase weight. So body weight squats, I want to be sure that my patients can do 10 to 15 reps, that they feel nice and controlled. They can do them slow and controlled, are not having any issues, no heaviness, no pain, nothing like that. And then I want you to be able to do single leg balance. So I prefer 20 to 30 seconds per side, but it could be a little bit less as long as you're able to hold your pelvis nice and stable and not let one side drop or be all wobbly. So those are just a few things that are sort of okay, these are benchmarks. Can I do these things? Okay, then I'm ready to start adding some load to what I'm doing. And I think one of the things that I hear a lot is people are worried about prolapse, right? And prolapse can mean a lot of things. It's sort of a catch-all term. Prolapse is basically where anything is falling out down there. And so it can be your bladder, it can be your pelvic floor, it can be your rectum, it can be a lot of things, but we don't want anything falling out from there. So I think a common myth, I guess, that people think is that lifting heavy causes prolapse. And really, that's not true. Poor technique or progressing too fast is what's going to cause prolapse or can cause prolapse. So we don't want to avoid lifting heavy because of that. What we want to do is go back in slowly, make sure that we're ready, and then progressively overload those muscles to a point where we are able to build that strength and we're not having any of those symptoms. If we have those symptoms, we back off. That means we're moving a little too fast. So let's break this down a little bit more as far as phases, okay? So let's call weeks 0 to 6. Well, that'll be phase 1, okay? So phase 1, as you know, if you had an uncomplicated vaginal birth, I would highly encourage you to start week 1 or 2 or as soon as you feel ready, okay, to start with breathing, bracing, working on alignment, working on glute bridges, some heel slides, diastasis exercises, all these things I outline, like this is the very beginning of my postpartum plan because I just want to make sure that you get those down and build that foundation first. Okay. We also work in like some hip hinging and just really like activating all the muscles around the pelvis. Remember, your glutes are directly connected into your pelvic floor. And so to work on our pelvic floor, we want to make sure that we are starting to strengthen and engage those glutes. Phase 2 would be weeks like 6 to 12. So basically that second part of your fourth trimester, okay? And this is where you might start adding in a little bit of weight. So like in my plan, I have people start adding in goblet squat. So, a kettlebell anywhere from like 10 to 20 pounds, something that's relatively light for you. And you want to do a little bit higher rep, lower weight here, right? Because we are building back to lifting heavy. We're not there yet, right? So we've done the kind of rehab work. Now we're like, okay, let's start with a little bit of weight, see how it feels. It should be something that feels like it's like, like a 6 or a 7 to you as far as like how difficult it feels. So not super difficult, but not super hard. And definitely we're not having any symptoms. So if we have symptoms, like I mentioned, which is heaviness, pain, leaking, any of that, we're backing it off, right? The next phase that comes in, we're going to call it like up to, let's say, that 3 to 6 month mark. Okay. So you're out of the fourth trimester. You're like getting your head above water a little bit with your baby and other kids, whatever. This is where we'd start to add in perhaps a barbell. We maybe want to start cutting the reps down a little bit. So this is where you could go down to like maybe start working on 6 or 8 reps. And it's a little bit harder. Your rate of perceived exertion or like how hard it feels, that's like maybe, like a 7 to an 8. And we're still really focusing on stability and alignment and like making sure we're doing everything properly. Okay. You're still very much building the foundation at this point. Okay. And I've done it 3 times myself. I've helped hundreds of women through it. The women who rush through these phases are the women that come back in later, sometimes with injuries, sometimes, with regrets about it because they maybe have another baby later and see like, oh my gosh, if I would have just spent a little longer building that foundation, I could have avoided problems down the road. And I hate to see that because it is just so simple to do it right the first time. We just have to be patient. We have to be patient, listen to our bodies. And sometimes we have to hold back, like I tell people this all the time. It often takes more discipline to not do something than it does to do it, right? So this is the time when you're like starting to feel really good again. And you're like maybe going to a workout class and you're like, I could totally do this just like it's written. But no, maybe you're not ready for it yet. And you have to like rein yourself in. And I know because I just came out of this phase. I am just about 9 months postpartum at the time of recording this. And I had this happen just like about 3 weeks ago. There was a workout at the gym. And I was like, I could totally do this at the weight that it's written. But it's going to take me a lot longer. It's a little more running than I have done yet. And so even though I really wanted to do it, to write my name up on that board and like get a big old gold star, I don't know from who, from myself, I don't know. I did. I dialed it back and I got a great workout in. And you know what else? I was able to come back and work out tomorrow. I did not crush myself, which really I was like, oh my gosh, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to walk tomorrow, which that's not the goal. That's not the goal. But that's a topic for another episode. Okay, let's get back into it. So after that 6-month mark, that's where I really encourage people to start working back into, some speed, some plyometrics, so some jumping. I usually, because I really love jumping. I love box jumps. I long jumped, triple jumped all the jumps in high school, and I just love it. So I usually start jumping sooner than that. But again, as long as it is symptom free, I never get back to jumping if I'm still having any leaking or pain or like even a feeling of pressure, like on a box jump when I land on the box. If I do, then I know that it's too early for me. But that's where you'd start to add that in right around the 6-month mark. So again, I hope this comes off that I'm not like trying to rush you through your rehab because again, I'm the last person that would do that. But what I really want to encourage you is to not get stuck in that like rehab phase forever, right? Like to get out of that and to get back into lifting heavier weights because there are just so many freaking benefits to it. It is so good for you on so many levels. That being said, there are some other things you can do, and maybe I'll do a whole nother episode about this. I'd love to know if you guys would like to hear more about this. What I have also found really helpful is I know creatine is like all the rage right now. I've been taking creatine off and on for 13 years. And so I feel like, and I've done a ton of research on it. And so I feel like that has been really helpful in my postpartum experience with building back muscle. I also think that natural ingestible peptides can be super helpful for this. I have seen this firsthand. I'm not talking about injections. I'm talking about ones that help you build back lean muscle and keep it on. I'll put the link below. And again, I'll probably talk about this in a future episode, but the peptides from Make Wellness, I'll put my link here. The one called Fit is incredible. There's some cool studies on it. And I truly wish I would have found it while I was pregnant. I would have started taking it then because I feel that it's safe during pregnancy for me personally, and who needs to help like build lean muscle more than pregnant and newly postpartum women. So anyways, there's some other like dietary supplemental things that I think can be really helpful as far as improving your ability to build muscle and keep it on. But again, maybe that's for another day. All that being said, I hope that you found this helpful. Here's the real thing I want you to remember. You are not fragile. Your body's not fragile because you had a baby. In fact, it's freaking strong because you had a baby. And it's also very adaptable. So you can build your way back into being as strong as you want. You're teaching your body that it's safe, that it's capable, that it's powerful. Like all these things, we are retraining our body that we can do these things. And so just don't be afraid of getting back to the heavy stuff, okay? For me personally, it just has been such a blessing to be able to get back to lifting heavy weights, like mentally, emotional, physically. It feels so good. And I know that it's good for my body. So I just really encourage you to obviously start where you are, but potentially look at maybe getting back to some heavier weights in the future. Remember, if you need help, I'm always here for you. If you need a plan to start from the very beginning, the very basics, I do have my postpartum plan. The link will be below here. And I am more than willing to help and answer questions. So if you ever have any questions, shoot me a message on Instagram at Dr. Carly. You can find me there. And until then, thanks for joining me this week. And I look forward to chatting with you next time.
Thanks for listening. Every Mom is an Athlete isn't just a podcast. It's a reminder. Motherhood is athletic. And you're still the athlete you've always been. But it's not about going back. It's about moving forward intentionally and powerfully. If this episode resonated with you, I'd so appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend, leave a quick review, or rate the show. It helps more moms to hear what they need to believe, that every mom is an athlete. See you next time.